call to order our first meeting of 2026, the January 12th meeting of the City Council. May I ask the clerk to call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Abdelgawad,
Here.
Councilmember Baker,
Present.
Councilmember Barber,
Present.
Councilmember Burke,
Present.
Councilmember Serco,
Present.
Councilmember Ingert,
Present.
Councilmember Holman,
Present.
Councilmember Mills,
Present.
Mayor Turnbow, absent.
We have a quorum. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There are no presentations or personal appearances tonight, so we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would ask Mr. Gress to make a staff report for Development Services.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, in your packet was a year-end report for December of 2025. Just a couple things I wanted to bring to your attention. Down towards the bottom, you'll see that down in the Commerce Center, Building 5 did receive their certificate of occupancy, which allowed the tenant, Church and Dwight, to move in and start some substantial progress on their tenant improvements. So Van Trust finished that project on time to deliver that to their newest tenant. And then they have commenced some footing and foundation work for the next building there, which is just adjacent to building number 5. Regarding additional permit activity, we did issue or finish the year out in December with 12 new single-family home permits in the Parkside, Knoll Creek, Eastbrook, and Cunningham neighborhoods. I wanted to sum that up, though. In the chart there on page 1 of the staff report, you'll see this year compared to 2024. And what I wanted to point out is you can see in orange, those are the year-end numbers for this year. We finished calendar year 2025 with 169 new dwellings in the city. All of those were single-family homes within the city's various subdivisions. If you look on the second page of my department report that has the bar chart, what I wanted to point out, as I found kind of interesting, we're finally back to what I'll call pre-COVID or like pre-landfill era permit numbers. So we finished this year with 169. We haven't permitted that many homes since 2017. So it's just good to see some of that stuff behind us and a lot of good activity going on in the city's various subdivisions. You'll see in there we have a couple upcoming meetings at Planning and Zoning. We had a couple Good Neighbor meetings over the last week, so some items that will make their way to you all in February and March. But that would conclude my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. Any questions for him? Not Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. I would ask Chief Wilson to make a report for the Police Department.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Pro Tem. My report this evening is Shop with a Cop event. We heard part of that at the last council meeting. I'll just give you the real final numbers. We had 57 elementary students that all of our officers and peculiar officers took to or met at Centerview. We fed the kids. We teamed them up with officers, and then we were shuttled back and forth to Walmart for a very long evening. We had 3 officers, we were short, Peculiar was short 3 officers, and there was a couple highway patrols that jump in and help us out. They didn't show up as well. So it made for a very long evening. Most of the volunteers were gone by the time that the last bus came in for wrapping. You've never seen 4 or 5 people get together and wrap a kid's present so quick to get them out of here. But it was a very successful evening. We couldn't do it, again, without all the officers that participate, that in the No Shave November, because that money goes to help shop with the kids. And the other city departments, especially the Parks Department, they're a big help for us. And then all of the community members and the businesses in the community that donate as well. And then the last thing that I have on my report is the update for the public safety sales tax hiring. We have 5 officers or 5 cadet officers in the Central Missouri Police Academy. I told you all that I would have those positions filled. I was real close. We had 2 officers that left, so I went from 7 down to 5. And then I have now given a conditional offer as well to a post-certified person, so we're back up to 6, hopefully. And that's my report this evening.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Wilson? Yes, Mr. Holman.
More of a statement than anything. Great report on the Shop with a Cop. Like I said, I happened to just be there that night. And while the chief's report was very complete, he sells himself short a little bit because 2 of the officers that were participating as heavily as anybody else was our chief and the chief from Peculiar, who I gave a hard time to, but told him he wasn't in uniform, he wasn't wearing red and white. But they were working as hard as everybody else out there. It was a really nice event and made a lot of kids' holiday, I think.
Yeah, I think that the kids had a great time with all the officers. Making those partnerships with the kids and building a relationship will pay off in the long run down the road.
Anything else? All right, Mr. Fairborn?
Thank you, Chief Wilson. Just a reminder to the council that next week, Monday is a national holiday. There will be no work session, and City Hall will be closed that day. That concludes staff reports.
Thank you, sir. There are no committee reports, so we will move on to the consent agenda. We have 4 items on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to dispose of this consent agenda?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented to include item A, the city council meeting minutes from the meeting of December 22nd, 2025. Item B, the appointments and affirmations of membership to incentive district boards, which is Resolution 2601. Item C, the 2025 curb replacement project acceptance and final payment, reference Resolution 2603. And item D, appointment of Yvette Sabur to the Raymore Arts Commission, Resolution 2604.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda? Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have unfinished business. If the clerk will read Bill 4002 by title only.
The second reading of Bill 4002 by title only. An ordinance of City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from A Agricultural District to BP-P Business Park Plan District Overlay, a part of tract of the Good Ranch, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 4002, the Good Ranch Tract 12 Federal Record Storage Facility rezoning from A to BP-P.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve Bill 4002. Any further discussion? Mr. Baker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to discuss in this phase what we're voting on tonight as far as a rezoning. These are points that are similar to what I discussed before, but a little bit different, that we have single-family homes to the east. With this new rezoning, we're going to put a warehouse in an area, and then next to that will be single-family homes, whereas our original plan in the blueprint designated that area for high-density homes, which would create a buffer between the low-density homes that are existing and will be built to the east. My concern with my constituents in Ward 1 is the people that have homes there and could build homes there, looking out into the backyard to the west, they're going to see a warehouse up to 35 feet high per what we're allowing. And that's going to be very hard for people to want and build single-family homes in that area when we push the warehouses to the east like we project here. The findings of fact number 6, that's the one I've not agreed with. Staff does not believe the zoning amendment will have a significant negative impact on nearby properties. I do feel it will. The stream in the woods, is considered a buffer, but it's not a tall buffer, and you're certainly going to be able to see a warehouse through the woods and the trees and all that, and especially at night, it'll be a totally different look. And then lastly, the one that's probably my biggest concern and what I hear on a regular basis from my constituents is the traffic out there. Right now, we have 2.5 warehouses open, approximately 1.5 million square feet of warehouse. And we have traffic jams at North Cass and Dean Avenue. We are adding a second stoplight at a cost of $40,000 to the city, but with the remaining 4 warehouses that are being built to the south and potentially us rezoning for a federal warehouse, that's going to put the footprint of warehouses in that area to 5.2 million square feet. Right now, at 1.5 million, we have traffic issues. At 5.2 million, we don't know where that's going to be. And we have one primary entrance and exit to the highway, and then we have a secondary entrance and exit off 195th that goes to a frontage road that is not going to be compatible with semis and trucks. So with that issue, I just think that by adding a warehouse to this area, we're already probably questioning our traffic control. And we did pay for a traffic study in July of 2020 that we have traffic issues with 2.5 warehouses. We go up to potentially 8, 9 warehouses. It's going to choke that area off to where potentially developers may find it to be too crowded to develop in the area of the pork chop in which we refer to. So with that being said, listening to my constituents and fielding many, many calls over the last month, I just can't vote in favor of this for that one reason, or these multiple reasons. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, it looks like 6-2, motion passes. Oh, my apologies. You can still. Councilmember Inkert is abstaining, so 5-2 with 1 abstention. Motion passes. Moving on to item B. If the clerk will read Bill 3992 by title only.
The second reading of Bill 3992 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the taxable industrial development revenue bonds, residences at Timber Trails Project, Series 2025, related to an industrial development project in the city, and authorizing the city to enter into certain agreements and take certain other actions.
Thank you. We're going to start this off by calling on Mr. Fearborn to answer some questions. There were some lingering questions after the last meeting and some questions that have come up since the meeting, maybe some misinformation that was shared. So, Mr. Fearborn, would you help us answer some questions?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
As you have indicated, late this afternoon and a few this morning, we received some media inquiries regarding this specific item and Chapter 100 in the city in general. So I did ask the Mayor Pro Tem to have the city's Special Economic Development Council answer those questions in case. I do know that the same reporter who was contacting staff did contact some of the council, so thought it would be a good idea to get those questions answered publicly. And at the exact same time, the Developers Council is here to clear up a couple of the issues from the first read on this item. I know there were a lot of inquiries that occurred with that as well. So with that, I would ask Ms. Granith to come forward.
Good evening, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So as Mr. Fearborn mentioned, I'm going to answer a few questions that was asked by the media and make sure we get those kind of out there in the open for everyone to hear. Happy to answer any additional questions from you all. And then the developer's attorney will answer maybe some more project-specific questions. So right now I'm going to focus kind of on the larger picture of Chapter 100 and why a project like this is authorized under the statutes and the Missouri Constitution. So I want to start out with the fact that Chapter 100, the usage of that for both industrial and commercial projects is a well-accepted practice. This structure started back in the 1980s, and our firm has done dozens, if not hundreds, specifically on commercial, so the multifamily or retail type aspect of that, totaling over $1 billion of principal amount. Just our firm alone, not accounting for all the other firms in the state that do this kind of a deal. So I did just want to impress upon you that it is a very common structure used for this purpose. Next, there's a question about Chapter 100 does not specifically mention commercial projects, and so how are we able to go outside of the true industrial projects? This is kind of a two-prong answer. So Chapter 100 or industrial revenue bonds are found both in Chapter 100, as we refer to it, of the statutes, and the Missouri Constitution. Chapter 100 authorizes cities to issue revenue bonds for the purpose of constructing a facility to be leased to a private entity, and then for that lease to be paid for out of revenues of the project. So this typical structure we're used to, right? It then lists industrial development projects such as warehouses, distribution, offices. This Chapter 100 then outlines the process for issuing bonds and going through the entire process that you all have become accustomed to. You'll notice I did not mention commercial in the project description under Chapter 100. That's actually found in the Missouri Constitution. It's Article 6, Section 27B. This section, it's very short. It's about, I think, 2 sentences, but it's definitely just a paragraph. It starts with that same lead-in, that the cities are authorized to issue revenue bonds for the purpose of constructing facilities to be leased to a private entity, and then for that lease to be paid back with revenues of the project. However, this constitutional provision lists a different set of allowable projects. It lists manufacturing, commercial, warehouse, and industrial purposes. So that's where that commercial comes in. As you may or may not be aware, but statutory and constitution construction interplay, the statutes in Missouri cannot take away powers that the Missouri Constitution grants. And so we lean on Chapter 100 to show us a good way or method of implementing this revenue bond process, but it's really the Constitution, which is at its core the governing principles for the state and the city, to give us that commercial as an identified allowable project. And that constitutional provision, again, and the structure used under it, it predates actually the statutes. And so this process has been going on since before the Chapter 100 statute. We just commonly refer to it as Chapter 100, Industrial Development Revenue Bonds. So what about commercial? How do we identify that? How do we get to the residential and retail components? Well, retail is a true commercial enterprise, right? I mean, that is kind of the core of what you think of as being commercial. It's authorized as commercial under the state statutes and state law, and then it's also categorized by the assessors as a commercial use. The same goes for multifamily residential. Under state law, multifamily residential is classified as a commercial purpose, commercial enterprise. It is run with that purpose behind it. And multifamily residential, the actual building itself is often categorized by the assessor as commercial, although that is not determinative. State law would override what an assessor determines to use as an assessed valuation. The next point that I want to speak about is how, there may be some language on a state website. The Department of Economic Development has kind of a cheat sheet or a short summary of Chapter 100 projects. I say a short summary, it's actually fairly lengthy and involved, and so I just want to kind of identify the 3 parts that it lists or categorizes under a Chapter 100 incentive. And you're familiar specifically with 2 of them, but the third one that I think is maybe an issue here, you're familiar with, but I don't know that we've ever specifically called it out. So I want to go ahead and make sure we understand that. So the first prong would be the property tax abatement. That's what we typically are thinking of. Real and personal property tax abatement. That's over the life of the project. And that is the portion that the city has absolute control of. You follow the outlined steps to mail out a plan, issue bonds, etc. There's no state approval or certification. There is a state form that gets filed by January 31st of the following year, where you just let the state know that you have done this project. That's really for their kind of tallying and economic development marketing type purposes. It's not a certification or an approval. So that's the first prong, is property tax abatement. The second prong is the sales tax exemption on construction materials. Y'all are familiar with that. That is involved in every Chapter 100 project that you all have authorized in recent years. Again, that is up to the city. It's the city lending their sales tax exemption for this public purpose. Again, no state approval or certification required. Get on to the third prong that is more issue here. And this is the one where if you look on the state website, it can get a little bit confusing, but this is the sales tax exemption on the purchase of personal property. So we're not talking about the ongoing abatement, we're talking about the initial purchase of personal property. There are some items of personal property that are exempted by statute, just outright, from sales tax exemption if you were to go buy them. Those are like pieces of machinery and equipment that are found in other state statutes. It is by right, nothing else is required. There are other pieces of personal property that when you purchase them, there is a possibility of purchasing them without paying sales tax on that purchase. And that provision falls into Chapter 100. It's referenced in Chapter 100. And that approval would be for items of personal property that are integral to a company's business, primary business activity. So we did this with Newly. If you think back to Newly and their expansion in the original one, there was a state Department of Economic Development approval and certification that we got as well, that allowed the city to offer a personal property sales tax exemption on the property that they purchased, like washers, dryers, their clotheslines, things like that. And that was approved by the state. And so how that works is Chapter 100 in the statutes, it says a company can fill out an application that's on DED's website, and they fill out a lot of information, and that application plus cities, if a city or the city representative, a lot of times it's the attorney doing it, will certify and provide copies of a past ordinance showing that there is a Chapter 100 project for this equipment and that it falls within a Chapter 100 project, then the state can certify or accept, approve this personal property sales tax exemption. And so that is where, that's the very narrow piece where the state certification or pre-approval comes in. And it's kind of buried on the state website there. So it does say in that area that commercial purposes, such as retail and residential, are not allowed. Why is that? It's your question, right? Or why are we allowed to do something on the city level, the state won't approve it? Why have they interpreted it that way? It goes back to that Constitution versus statute issue. So, like I said, the state's authority to grant this additional personal property sales tax exemption is it's found in Chapter 100, which is a statute. And Chapter 100 only lists the industrial projects as the allowable projects, right? So the state is only allowed to operate within that Chapter 100 framework, whereas the city is specifically authorized in the Constitution to do projects for a larger scale. But that constitutional provision does not also include the sales tax exemption for personal property. That's where our difference of what's allowable and not allowed and the different interpretations comes in. Happy to answer any specific questions. That's very, makes my lawyer heart happy to talk about those differences, but I know it's really in the weeds, and I just wanted to clarify that. Just to recap, bring it back to our project. So the project today only has abatement on real property and the sales tax exemption on construction materials. Those two pieces that are solely within the city's control, the state does not certify, does not need to provide approval. That's where we are today. One very final comment on the sales tax exemption of construction materials, again, to answer a question that was asked by the media. What happens if the city gives their sales tax exemption and then that's found to be either incorrectly given or incorrectly used by the developer? Where's the liability there? What happens? So we cover this in section 6.11 of each of the leases. And there's a specific indemnities provision that covers improper use of a sales tax exemption on construction materials. It requires the developer to pay all costs, expenses, fees, fines, for any investigation into whether it was useful, any actual finding of if it was used correctly, all of those. And then I'll just add that on top of that, we have general broad indemnity in the performance agreement that was signed 2.5 years ago when the project was initially approved, and in the leases as well going forward. So that is to address, hopefully answer some questions that you all may have also heard. Happy to answer any questions now, although I think right now is a good time to probably turn it over to Developers Council to also address specific questions maybe that we heard at the last meeting that have come up since then on the specific project. Of course, I'll be here to answer any questions should they come up after that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bigham?
On his way.
Hi, my name is Ben Bigham, Attorney Polsinelli here on behalf of Timber Trails. Jake Lovelace is here too, on behalf of developer. And we're just here to try and answer some kind of questions that, based on the first reading, that seemed like came up, maybe some confusion, and just work through those kind of structure. And then I'll stand here for questions for anybody that they have them. So, first one is just clarification on the Chapter 100 approvals. Why are they happening now? You know, we had the first read a couple weeks ago. Here we are at the second read. When was the Chapter 100 discussed before this council, before the city? It was actually back in 2023. There was a development agreement entered in between the city and the developer. Inside of that development agreement, it contemplated the passage of a Chapter 100 plan, and within that Chapter 100 plan, it contemplated the Chapter 100 bonds that are being presented before you on the retail and multifamily phases. So, to developers' knowledge, since 2023, there hasn't been any other Chapter 100s that have come before the council and been approved. So the reason there's that gap in time is because the DA, contemplated it. Developer went to go do things that needed to be done in terms of construction time and things of that, secure a lender, all of those things to get a project of this scale moving. And they're back here to get the Chapter 100 bonds approved and the abatement structure in place. Second kind of questions that came up, it seemed on the debt service, what are the payments to be made on the Chapter 100 bonds? Who's obligated to pay them? Those types of, string of thoughts. So here on this Chapter 100 bond, it's a book entry special obligation bond. And what do I mean by a special obligation bond? Under a special obligation bond, specific revenues are pledged to the repayment of the bonds. In this case, the only revenue that's being pledged for the repayment of the bonds is the pilot payment, the tax payments that are being made under this Chapter 100 structure. And because in this case the developer purchased the bonds, the developer is the one obligated to make the tax payments, and the city has no reason or no obligation or liability under the Chapter 100 structure to make any payments of those tax payments. Third point, I'm going to continue going in on that a little bit too. One thing that I find causes a little bit of confusion, sometimes the dollar amount that's associated with these bonds, right? So I'm going to take the multifamily phase Chapter 100 bonds, for example. They're listed at $56.6 million, right? What does the $56.6 million bond, issuance mean? In this case, you just have to think of it because of its book entry and its special obligation was purchased by the developer. Just think of it as the developer's anticipated cost of the project. So that $56 million is what Timber Trails believes, or what their construction budget shows that the project will cost them to construct with their own private funds, with their own money. The city has no obligation to pay debt service on the $56 million. It's merely identifying that the project is anticipated to cost approximately $56 million. And the same would go for the retail phase. I think it's $3.6 million. $3.6 million in that case. So same line of thought goes there too. The next point that seemed to, bring a little confusion. There's a distinction between the two is the clarification between the two different taxes being paid, the two different pilot schedules being made under these different transactions, these different Chapter 100 bonds. So I'm going to start with the multifamily. In the multifamily case, this is what we call a fixed pilot. What does a fixed pilot mean? A fixed pilot means that we can, with certainty, project out for the lifespan of the Chapter 100 bonds, which in this case is 25 years, a 25-year tax payment schedule. For 25 years, the developer and the city will know how much in taxes are paid on this project. In this case, the amount that was landed on for the taxes is $1,426.35 a unit. So in this case, 300 units are anticipated to be constructed. To find the tax payment in year one, we would take 300 times $1,426.35. And that will escalate every 2 years, so biannually, about 1.5%, which is what we see in Cass County as kind of an annual escalator for, the increase of taxes over the course of the lifespan of this pilot schedule. The big question then is, how is the $1,426.35 a unit determined? It was actually determined by Cass County itself. So developer came in, they wanted a fixed pilot, which gives them certainty moving forward so they can go find a lender, a financial partner, and know, they have a static payment schedule that they can look to and finance the project around. And the city wanted to know, okay, we want to still get the benefit of this deal. What is Cass County, the one who's going to actually assess this value and appraise the value of the project, determine its market value? What do they think the dollars per unit will be on the door? It was Cass County, third party, that came back to the city and developer and said, we think in year one, which was anticipated, within the development agreement a couple years after when it was struck back in 2023, that it would be $1,426.35. So that was what city and developer agreed to, that if Cass County thinks it's 100%, we're all on board that it's 100%. And just to, to give scale of magnitude here, right? I think the current tax generation of the property over which the multifamily project will sit is about $1,000. It's I don't have the exact. It's somewhere around $1,000. But in year one, with that 300 units times the dollars per unit, which is that $1,426.35, the year one tax payment will be $427,905. So, I mean, a huge multiple in terms of what's being generated today and what will ultimately be paid by the developer for those tax payments. This can be distinguished from the retail phase, which is what we call floating pilot. And a floating is that the developer will pay taxes which are otherwise due and then take an abatement percentage out of it. So in this case, the abatement is 25%. So that means that assessor issues a bill, it's $100. The developer will pay $75, 75% of that amount that was provided by the Cass County, assessor. And, primarily for this 25%, it can scale into the development agreement. So if certain conditions are met, that abatement can rise to as high as 50%. And the way that we get from 25% to 35% and up to 50% is through certain businesses that are provided within this retail development by the developer, tenants that they secure. More sales tax generating businesses will increase that abatement level. And the reason behind that is if more sales taxes are being generated, then that kind of fills in the gap of, the abatement that's being provided through this Chapter 100 structure. And, the way these retail tenants, are secured is they're triple net leases, right? The taxes completely flow through to the user. So the intent with this 25% and then, scaling higher and higher with, sales tax generating businesses is that flow through savings of the property taxes can be used to entice higher quality users and types of users that, constituents want to have there. Retail users, restaurant users. I mean, the more abatement that exists, the lower rent payment you can offer to the tenant and thereby entice them to come into this development versus a different development that might have either a higher abatement schedule or be in a different location, right? The last point I want to talk about, just kind of, I think a term was discussed, maybe a clawback, right? And to me, it's just what happens if the developer defaults under these Chapter 100 bonds, right? What is the recourse of the city, and is there a clawback? And by clawback, I mean, can the city come in and take money back from the developer for the failure of the developer to perform under their end of the bargain, this Chapter 100 structure? The city's recourse really is that if the developer fails to perform or otherwise, doesn't make tax payments, doesn't make these pilot payments, they can dissolve this Chapter 100 transaction pursuant to the agreement. So if the developer fails to come up on its end of the bargain, the Chapter 100 structure dissolves, and the developer would be obligated to make tax payments on the property just like it would be for any other property owner. So in the case of the multifamily right, we have that 100% fixed pilot. Instead of being that fixed 25-year tax payment structure, the Chapter 100 would go away. Cass County would give them their tax bill for that year, and the developer would be obligated to pay that tax bill. The city has no obligation to make the county whole or make any taxing jurisdiction whole for the developer's failure to either deliver the project or make any tax payments under the Chapter 100 bonds. The same goes for the retail phase of the project. And, in that case, and let's just go one layer further, right? Let's say the developer fails to pay, they can't make the payments on their regular tax payments that will then be assessed against the property. Well, in this case, we anticipate having a lender, so the lender would actually step into the shoes of the developer here and make these tax payments. And then if we go even one layer further and say the lender's not in place to make the tax payments, it would be like any other property owner that fails to pay taxes within the city. The county can place a lien against the property, and that's their recourse. There'll be interest penalties, all those typical things associated by state statute. So I think that's everything I wanted to touch on, or that I took notes on last time I was here a couple weeks ago. So I'm here for questions. Again, thanks for your time, and I know our team's ready to go, and we're excited to get this project moving.
Thank you. Anything further, Mr. Fearborn?
Nope. I know both of them are available for questions from the council.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the council? Questions? Mr. Baker?
I do have some comments, but I'll leave that until after we do the motions. But on page 341 of the packet, for the enhanced abatement schedule for the, and I guess questions are open for both these, but it has the enhanced abatement schedule, and you have it tied to a restaurant at the hotel and/or this retail center. And it could go either off the retail center or it says or, and then one of the following is true, then it's tied to the square footage of this potential restaurant at a hotel that we have not even talked about yet. I know that we're voting on these separately. Obviously, the retail is a vote, the apartments are a vote, and the hotel, if that ever comes about, would be a vote. How can we tie this enhanced schedule together to two different projects?
So the bond, the bond issuances are separate. They're three separate groups. However, the overall plan of development is a singular unit. And so there was a single Chapter 100 plan, a single development agreement. And within that development agreement, there are different standards, right, that do refer to separate or the separate bond issuances. And so it's under that combined plan that we have the option. The method moving forward at this point where the hotel is not to be developed, which it's always been contemplated to be after these first two phases. But at the status quo of the hotel not being in existence yet, we would default just to that first portion. If and when the hotel is built and meets those standards, then that could also be used because both the single, the retail as its own entity and then the restaurant at the hotel were both seen as good instances, good outcomes for the city by staff and all the decision makers at the time of saying, these are things that we want to promote and look for in our community. And so we gave the option, the flexibility because both were targeted by the city. Does that answer? No?
Well, I guess so then, if and when the hotel comes in front of us with a restaurant, that will be voted, the Chapter 100 funds could be used on the restaurant in the hotel then?
Yes, yes. It would be the hotel phase that would come forward as a single bond issuance under the plan would have the ability to, it would be the entire hotel building that could include a restaurant. Did you have something you would add?
And maybe to add on to that, if I understand your question, would be that the sales tax generator aspect of the development agreement that provides the enhanced abatement or doesn't, the notion behind that in the development agreement was that if the hotel that the developer is able to secure, if there's no restaurant component to that, then nothing, really changes about the project. If there is a restaurant component to that, whether it's inside the restaurant or a pad site or something, the notion behind what Ms. Granath was explaining is that the sales tax generated from that can be used to calculate what the enhanced abatement percentage would be. And to Ms. Granath's point, the thinking behind that was that more sales tax with a hotel or no sales tax with a hotel, depending on what the developer is able to secure, they can capture that activity or use that in their calculation of what the abatement ends up being on an annual basis. I think that's maybe what I got from your question, since it is kind of a future phase that might be able to be captured into this project.
Yeah, I just want clarification because I know we talked about separation and just my concern would be is you build a big restaurant and hotel, that'd be great. That's what everybody's asking for out here is a huge sit-down restaurant. But would that offset the square foot of the strip mall and then automatically go to a higher abatement because you have a big restaurant offsetting a relatively small strip mall out on that project? But not for us to decide.
Yeah, one comment there would be that the strip center will be the same size no matter what. It would allow theoretically, if you had a good restaurant generating sales tax, it would theoretically allow more of the retail center to be non-sales tax generating.
Any additional questions? Mr. Circo?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I do have a few questions when you brought this stuff up. I've been working on this for a few days. But when you brought up about we got the 25-year outline and original program, and for 5 years, 8 years down the road, the project on the multifamily's done. They're getting their tax dollars, they're paying their share, what they need for the county. And if they go upside down, they get billed that year for that stuff they owe to the county. But after that, in that 25-year process, who gets defaulted onto the property to make that all payable down a year when you still have 25 years on this deal?
So,
Where does that roll back to?
so you're saying in year 8 of the 25-year fixed pilot, the project ceases to exist?
Yeah.
Exactly. So the Chapter 100 transaction would fall apart. It's default. It's done, right? It goes away. And then the assessor would just bill tax to the property like any other owner would have. And then the property owner itself would owe those taxes. So if the developer's not there, if they defaulted and go belly up, they're not there, the lender would step in and be making these payments.
Does that kind of protect the city then?
Correct.
When
And
it
it's-
comes back, or the
and-
city would have,
Yeah.
some kind of a,
Yeah, so the Chapter 100 payment is dispersed to the taxing jurisdictions like it normally would be.
Yeah.
And the terms of if the assessor comes in, just issues a regular tax bill, same thing, it disperses just like it would that Chapter 100 payment. So they operate the same.
so, I don't know, Mr. Furman, do we have an MOU on that stuff and everything normally on those? In case that happens?
Absolutely, sir. The original agreement on this, just to put it into some context, this is not a new project to the council.
No.
As both of general councils have said, this was actually approved, the development agreement was approved, which also approved the financing structure that included the bonds. All of that was in August of 2023. All this is doing is authorizing the sale of the bonds that were approved in that agreement back there. But yes, there is a full development agreement and MOU in place on this.
Yeah, in 23, I wasn't on the council. I was at 2 years off, so I didn't, when it's coming back now, so I wasn't there to go through all this with you guys in 23. So, but when we were talking tonight, I just wanted to make sure, yeah, when things fall through the cracks, what could happen, that our city is structured to hold on and not be slam dunk with a project that's maybe built, but now it's trying to rent tenants up or down for the volume and the money that's comes through for that. That's all I was curious.
If I can, really quick, just one comment on that. So when Mr. Brigham mentioned that the transaction, the Chapter 100 transaction kind of dissolves or goes away, what he means by that is that the city has specific authorization in the plan, development agreement, and the indenture and the lease to immediately deed back the property to the company. Because remember, during a Chapter 100 project, the city has title to the property. And so your remedy is to deed that back to the company with no action on their part. You can do it unilaterally, and that puts it back on the tax rolls just like any other property.
Okay.
And the city has no more liability on it. I mean, not that you really have liability now. You have liability because you're an owner of the property.
Yeah.
But then everything we cover, indemnity, insurance, all of that in our documents. So
Or okay,
The
so the
company
term of the
still-
loan, the 25, would be null and void, and it was
Correct, yeah.
rerouted a different way.
yep,
for
all the documents would
property.
be terminated. It would go away completely.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Seeing no further questions, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Holman,
I move that we approve Bill 3992, the Timber Trails Iconic Chapter 100 multifamily phase.
thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Mr. Baker?
More, and I do appreciate both your explanation of what we talked about tonight, Chapter 100, and the details of it. I think it really comes down to Chapter 100 is not something that's automatic. It's not something that the city has to do. It's not something our development has to do. So looking at this one, and you know, the concern was a 25-year, everything we've done prior has been 23 or less. This one being 56 million, which is by far the largest Chapter 100 we've done with apartments. And over the last several years, we've done 4 apartment complexes, 1,125 units, totaling 173 million plus in Chapter 100. That is what I'm hearing. I know that's what Councilman Mills is hearing from our constituents, is a lot of apartments, a lot of Chapter 100, and what are we getting back in return?
Mr. Baker, sorry to interrupt. So remember that the question that we're looking at right now is whether or not to approve issuing the bonds. The Chapter 100 has already been approved, so we can't take that back. We're deciding, are we going to approve these bonds that we've promised with already a Chapter 100 agreement with this developer? So I don't know if, make sure that your discussion is relevant to the topic, please.
Well, my discussion is why I am voting no on it, just so that people are clear that I'm up here representing constituents who have these concerns. I've expressed that, yes, this development is going through. We have approved that already in 2023. The concern is, at what point is the city going to look at this and say, okay, this is too much? And at my point, once we pass this, which I'm sure based on the vote tonight it will pass, it is a lot of money that we're giving up. Your point was last week, we get a few hundred on agriculture. Now we're going to get 400,000 with this here. But at what cost does the city offset having potentially 500 to 600 residences, 450 cars, and whatever else? With the pull factor being 0.74, I mean, some of the money is going to be spent in Raymore, but much more will be spent elsewhere. So at what cost, by bringing in this development with this many people and cars and what the strain is on our city resources, that was the ultimate question I think Mr. Councilman Mills had, was what is that offset number? And that's what many people have approached me on is, you know, what is that number? So I just wanted to voice my opinion on this, why I don't support it. I didn't support it 2 weeks ago. I just think we're doing a lot of these that, you know, is starting to be questioned. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Didn't you support this and vote for it when we actually came up with this portion that we're talking about? The development agreement you voted for back in 23, am I correct?
Oh, you are correct, and I have answered that in the past, that I was newly elected.
It's not your turn, it's Jay's turn.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Circo, did I see your hand up? Mr. Circo, did I see your hand up earlier? Okay, sorry. Further discussion. Mr. Burke? Okay, Mr. Mills?
Again, I echo what Councilman Baker said, and again, the previous council may have approved this concept and this development, but it's not a rubber stamp that we have to approve the financing, that the citizens of Raymore have to enter into a finance agreement for multifamily properties, which again, I don't believe is a wise use. If it's such a good deal, there's other financing mechanisms for a lot of developments that have to use other financing mechanisms. But I just do not believe that the citizens of Raymore should be publicly financing multifamily units, because again, like Mr. Baker said, the cost, I mean, even what we're receiving in pilots, if this is fully rented out, will only cover 2 police officers. And what additional drain with all of these apartments are going to do to law enforcement, to the roads, schools, other things like that. And so I just do not agree that this makes sense for the citizens of Raymore to finance this type of project.
Chapter 100 is not the city financing the project, just to make that clear in case we didn't understand that before.
The city of Raymore will own this property as a citizen.
It's not your
Point
turn
of order,
any
Mayor
longer.
Pro Tem,
It's
he's
not
not
your
been
turn any
recognized
longer.
by the speaker.
Mr. Burke, it's your turn.
I'd like to call the question.
All right, the question has been called, so
Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Zur.
So for purposes of calling the question, I believe that Councilmember Holman has made a motion to do so. I have had the opportunity to look at that particular issue recently. There'd be a second, and then there is no discussion on that motion. You'd have to pass that by 2/3. So there is a motion that would be made by Councilmember Holman to call the question. There'd be a second that would need to be made. After that second, you'd have a vote. There is no discussion on that particular motion, and that vote would have to pass by 2/3 majority of the council present, not the full council.
we would vote on this bill
You would vote on the motion
to call the question.
to call the question.
Okay. So the question has been called. Is there a second?
Mayor, Madam
I didn't
Mayor
make
Pro
them.
Tem.
It was Mr. Burke.
I was the one that made the
Okay, backwards.
initial.
So Mr. Burke called the question. Is there a second to call the question to end discussion? Okay, no second. Mr. Burke, did you have any other additional discussion on this topic?
No, thank you. I think we've had several.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, looks like we're ready to vote anyway. Oh, Mr. Baker.
I just wanted to reply to Councilman Holman's response, and I have responded to that in prior meetings. In 2023, newly elected, when I initially looked at that, I really did think that the direction of what we were doing as far as Chapter 100 would be much different than what it is 3 years later. So therefore, people have the opinion to change their mind, and I have changed my mind for even more so my constituents who have told me over and over they don't support this. So therefore, I represent the people that vote for me, and that is why I have changed my mind. I've changed my mind for quite some time now on this. So I just wanted to explain what he had asked. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Mills?
Again, a comment is to what she said. This property will be owned by the city of Raymore. The citizens are the citizens of Raymore. And so this is public financing. It's just like any general obligation bond that's considered public financing because the city owns it. So I am not incorrect when I say the citizens of Raymore are financing this project.
Could we get the opinion of our council? Is the city financing this project?
Ms. Granath?
The city will be the owner on the real estate records of the property. However, they will not have any obligation to pay anything on this. The developer is both the debtor and the purchaser of the bonds. So that's where the money is flowing. It's unlike general obligation bonds in that the city will owe no money on it. They cannot raise taxes for it, and they have no liability to pay on it.
The citizens are not paying for this development through the city.
I will caveat that the citizens would be the beneficiaries of property taxes that are being abated under the retail portion specifically. The multifamily is created so that it's 100%, it's supposed to mirror 100%, so that there would not be an abatement value, but that is where the citizens would not see all of the revenue that they could potentially see.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those opposed? Motion passes 6-2. If the clerk will now move on to the next bill, number 3993, and read that bill by title only, please.
The second reading of Bill 3993 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the taxable industrial development revenue bonds, Timber Trails Retail Project, Series 2025, related to an industrial development project in the city, and authorizing the city to enter into certain agreements and take certain other actions.
Thank you. Mr. Fearborn, any further clarification on this item tonight?
No, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, sir. If there are no further questions, do I have a motion to dispose of this item?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve Bill 3993, the Timber Trails Iconic Chapter 100 Retail Phase.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion on this item? Mr. Baker?
Thank you. As I said 2 weeks ago, I think a 25-year Chapter 100 on a retail center is something that is driving us down the road of setting a precedence that we don't need to be getting involved in. I think this could have stood alone without any type of financing or just basically public use of our name really to finance something as a Chapter 100 does. I think a strip center, a strip mall, retail center, whatever you want to call it, 25 years from now, will we ever see the true property tax value in 25 years? And that is a concern of mine, that if this passes, we are going to have other retail centers that wish to use Chapter 100, and using the precedents of tonight would have a good case to ask for it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Circo?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Did have a question on of course, the commercial, the business end. That's what I thrive for, the commercial stuff, but I think a lot of people do. When it comes to developing for the commercial end, shops and stuff like that, on the business side of the commercial side, whose obligation, responsibility will that be to go out and actually get people to build brick and mortar to come into the city in that area that we're building for that principle? Whether it be the city, the builders, or actually go out and
Developer is obligated to.
developer going to be
go
obligated
out
to
and
make
secure
sure they bring in
tenants. Yep.
good businesses, good things they know about.
Yep.
So we can make the top tax, retail tax dollar off of.
Exactly, and to reiterate,
Yeah.
the types of businesses that are called incentivized in the DA to be brought by the developer, that adjust that scale that Sarah touched on.
Yeah.
That's why we're going to go out and try and get the best, highest
best
sales tax
sale.
generating businesses we can.
Yeah, A+ stuff. Let's go get it. Okay, thank you.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes 6-2. That brings us to item D. If the clerk will read Bill 4006 by title only.
The second reading of Bill 4006 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending provisions of Chapter 130 of the Raymore Code of Ordinances to adjust the operation and management of the municipal court.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, do we have a motion to dispose of this item?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Mr. Holman?
I move that we approve Bill 4006, amendment to Chapter 130 of the Raymore City Code.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Mayor Pro Tem, I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. That concludes our unfinished business for tonight, so now we'll move to new business. Item A under new business is Tax Increment Financing Plans and Redevelopment Projects Annual Report. This item is simply a report and a public hearing. It does not require a resolution or ordinance. I will therefore open the public hearing and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would ask Ms. Lee to begin the staff report on this item.
And if I could get your attention for one moment, there's a kind of a supporting PowerPoint to go along with this, so I'll take control of your computers here in just one moment for Ms. Lee to follow you all along. Should double check from my track record. You all can see that on your screen, correct? Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Gress. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. The purpose of the Annual Tax Increment Financing, or TIF Plans and Project Report is to review each project's progress. So as an overview, there are 3 active TIFs in Raymore. The Raymore Galleria TIF, which was established in 2005 and is estimated to expire in 2028. The Foxwood Village Shops TIF, which was established in 2009 and is estimated to expire in 2032. And then Highway 58 and Dean Avenue TIF, which was established 10 years ago in 2016 and is estimated to expire in 2039. To be approved, each TIF was presented to the TIF Commission. The commission includes 5 city representatives, 2 school district representatives, 2 Cass County representatives, and 1 representative from another taxing jurisdiction. These TIFs were all approved unanimously by their TIF commission. I also want to note that recent state legislation has altered the requirements for utilizing TIF and the composition of the TIF commission, which significantly restricts the future use of TIF within Cass County. The public benefit of TIFs is to enhance and expand the tax base of the city by the addition of commercial real property and associated increases in personal property, retail sales, income, and other economic activity through business and population growth, and to increase employment opportunities for the city's residents in addition to business enterprises within the city. The Raymore Galleria TIF is located along 58 Highway and Dean Avenue. This year, a multi-tenant building was constructed in Project Area 3, creating a great space for what we now is home to Einstein Bros, Pacific Dental, and an additional tenant space. This TIF generated 7.1% payment in lieu of tax, or pilot revenue, over this last year, and the economic activity tax, or EATS, increased by 12.6% within this reporting period. 50% of both the EATS and the pilot payments are captured by the city in this TIF, and this TIF is anticipated to expire, like I said, in 2028. Next, the Foxwood Village Shops TIF, which is located at the intersection of Highway 58 and Mott Drive, which includes Culver's and Starbucks. This TIF generated 4.6% more pilot revenue and 17.9% more EATS within its reporting period. Similar to the Raymore Galleria TIF, the city also captures 50% of both EATS and pilot payments for this as well, and this TIF is anticipated to expire in 2032. Lastly, we have the Highway 58 and Dean Avenue TIF, which was established 10 years ago in 2016. It is home to K-Jeweler, Firehouse Sub, Wingstop, Wild Bill's Tobacco, Mod Pizza, Qdoba, and Panda Express. This TIF generated 22.4% more pilot revenue over the last year, and its EATS increased 19.7% within the reporting period. Similar to the other TIF, 50% of both EATS and pilot payments are captured by the city, and this TIF is set to expire in 2039. And that concludes my annual report, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions? All right, seeing none.
Thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Freeborn?
Nothing further, just a reminder that the public hearing is still open.
Okay. We do have a public hearing open. If anyone from the public would like to speak on this topic, please come forward, state your name and address, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one coming forward, we will close the public hearing and move on.
That is correct.
Very good. Moving on to item B in new business. May we have the first reading of Bill 4010 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 4010 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, establishing an intergovernmental agreement with the Belton Police Department Municipal Jail to provide inmate housing.
Thank you. May we have a staff report?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would ask Chief Wilson to make a staff report on this item.
What you have before you is the contract between the Belton Jail.
Microphone on.
It's on. There's a green light anyway.
It's too far away.
So what you have before you is the Belton Jail inmate housing contract. We've not had an increase in 2 years. This contract has went up slightly by $18. It will be in effect for 2 years, should you all approve it. And we've had a long history with the Belton Municipal Jail since I've been here for 33 years. That's our primary municipal jail. That's the end of staff report.
Thank you, sir.
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chief Wilson? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 4010?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve Bill 4010, the intergovernmental agreement with the Belton Police Department Municipal Jail.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll just make a quick statement. Because my husband is now associated in leadership with the Belton Police Department, I inquired with Mr. Zur about if there was a reason for me to abstain on this topic. And per our conversation and his advice, he said, because my husband nor I receive any personal compensation, commission, or fees from this agreement, it is perfectly fine for me to participate in the vote this evening. So just in all transparency. We have a motion and a second, no conversation. All those in favor? Very good. Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to item C. May we have the first reading of Bill 4009 by title only, please?
The first reading of Bill 4009 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into agreement with Revives LLC for website design and hosting services.
Thank you. May we have a staff report?
Thank you. I would ask Ms. Harmer to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. A request for qualifications for website hosting and design services was sent out with the expiration of the current website hosting provider's contract. We received 10 responses, and communication staff evaluated those responses based on relevant criteria and qualifications. After virtually meeting with the highest scoring respondents and viewing product demonstrations, staff determined Revise LLC to have the best proposal, and we do recommend approval of this agreement.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for staff? Thank you. Is there a motion to dispose of Bill 4009?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve Bill 4009, award of contract for website hosting and design to Revise LLC.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I will second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item D. May we have the first reading of Bill 4011 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 4011 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2026 operating budget for the purchase of website design and hosting services in the amount of $68,500.
Thank you. May we have a staff report?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would ask Finance Director Ms. Williams to provide the staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Madam Pro Tem and members of the council. The city desires to enter into contract to redesign the city website as well as for website hosting services. It is necessary to amend the fiscal year 26 general fund operating budget in the communications department in order to enter into this agreement. The amount of this budget amendment is equal to the contract amount of $68,500. That concludes staff report.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Seeing none, is there a motion to dispose of Bill 4011?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
I move that we approve Bill 4011, the budget amendment, website hosting and design services.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mayor Pro Tem, I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. That concludes our new business for this evening. Next up is public comments. If anyone from the public would like to comment this evening, please come to the podium, identify yourself for the record, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll move to council, Mayor Pro Tem and council communication. We'll start with Mr. Baker.
I actually don't have anything tonight. I think I spoke a lot earlier, so I will turn my time back over to someone else to expand.
Very good. Mr. Mills?
The only thing I would just add is just a personal comment with a lot that's going on in the country and even in the Kansas City area and things like that. I would hope and pray that if there was people that were committing crimes or violating our citizenship, illegal aliens here, and ICE was in our town, and I would hope that our city would fully cooperate and our law enforcement would cooperate and do everything they can to support the laws of our country. So I just make that comment.
Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to say that we had a good night here. We Q&As, and that's what we do. People, again, if you want to know what we do on work sessions, watch at night, because we do a lot of work on the work session. And then nights here where we're actually in a major meeting here at the diocese. And people, if you're not 8-0 or you're not 6-2, or you're different ones, that's okay, because we all have our different opinions. We all have our ideas, and we ask the questions and we get answers. So that's the way I think city government should work. You can't always be 8-0, because people would probably start thinking something's wrong there. But I appreciate the answers we come from our council members, from the city, back and forth. I think it's a good time when you can do that, so that people can watch and say, okay, they get an understanding of what we're doing and how we do it. So I think it was a good night for the Q&As. Thank you.
Mr. Burke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I just had a little funny thing happen last week. I'm teaching kindergartners through second graders chess, and I'm not a chess master. I work with the chess master, but it's always a good time to work with little kids. I just left Missouri Mud, and I went to the school, and I'm teaching this kid, and he said to me, "Have you brushed your teeth today?" And wow, what do you say? I said that I did, but I had lunch, and I apologized, and I got up and walked to another table. But, it's a good practice, because there are times that you're going to hear things that you just don't want to hear, and you just got to smile and deal with it.
Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Good job tonight, by the way, keeping us all in order. I just wanted a couple things. Just Mr. Gress, your report, end of your report. We're still building single-family homes in Raymore, and it looks like we had an uptick on it. And I don't think that's a great thing, and I think that'll continue. And we've got the kind of town that folks want to move in, and I was very impressed with that. Also, Chief Wilson, with everything that's going on right now, it's nice to have some goodwill, with people out there, and your police department certainly does that. And these kids, I guarantee you, will remember that the rest of their lives. And maybe when the lights come on, they will pull over and roll the window down and keep their hands on the steering wheel, and because they know how nice police officers can be when you cooperate. So, thank you, sir.
Mr. Holman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Again, I would concur with Councilmember Barber's comments. You did job well done, especially in the mayor's absence tonight. I'd like to thank staff for all their work on the items tonight. In particular, special recognition to our bond counsel for being here again, Mr. Zur, Mr. Gress, for providing that specialty information in regards to Chapter 100 and how that actually works. Again, I still think there's probably some confusion on that around, but very well done. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Inkert.
Just a real quick comment. When we were discussing Bill 4010 about working agreement with Belton Police Department, I was very pleased to hear that. I have some experience there, and I know that having that ability can really come in handy, because sometimes you have no idea what the night's going to bring. You have no idea what the day's going to bring. Will you have enough to cover that particular call or to do these kind of things? So have that agreement is real important. It helps keep our citizens safe, as well as having good interaction with other agencies, which is much needed today. Thank you.
And last up, frankly, Councilmember Holman took the words right out of my mouth. I wanted to show appreciation to our city staff for all of the lessons taught tonight. I think it's important that we know what we're voting on, and sometimes when we've looked at things several times, it's nice to take a step back and get that refresher just to be sure that everyone up here and even the public are on the same page and try to help everyone understand what it is we're actually doing and voting on. So thank you to city staff and our special counsel who were here tonight to help us learn more about Chapter 100 bonds. And with that, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Any reason to go into executive session?
There,
Oh. Of course, Mr. Circo?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I want to go to the chief and say, when you guys get in a situation, you know, I get involved, a lot of people involved, city, all kinds of stuff with kids and stuff. But if you think you're going to be tight, like next year, you got council members, you got business owners, I think reaching out, we'd love to come and help you if you're in a situation where your manpower is down. So you don't have to do what you guys did. If you need 4 or 5, I'll be glad to help. I know other people would too. Just reach out to us. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Circo.
there
Mr.
is no
Huber.
reason to go into executive session.
Very good. With no reason to go into executive session, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I move that we adjourn this January 12th, 2026 meeting of the Raymore City Council.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
And I will second.
Thank you. All those in favor?